Welcome to Grad School Life by PhD Balance, a new mini segment of Grad Chat where we speak to graduate students about behind the scenes, day-to-day lives in their program. I'm your host, Courtney Applewhite. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Religious Studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and I'm studying death. So please don't forget to like and subscribe on your chosen platform to get notifications about new episodes of Grad Chat and Grad School Life. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, maybe leave us a little 5-star review. It helps other people find us, particularly those new grad students that we want to hear our content. So be sure to do that if you haven't yet. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Ricardo Couto-Rodriguez. And I'm going to sit here and, well, first I'm going to welcome him. Welcome, Ricardo. Hi.
Hi.
And now I'm going to make him sit through his bio, which is my favorite part of recording these. So Ricardo was born and raised in Arecibo, Puerto Rico, on the northern coast of the island. He graduated with his BS in biology from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez Campus. Afterwards, he completed his master's degree at the same university with a focus on microbiology. For his master's thesis, Ricardo's focus was on the salt-loving or halophilic microbial communities in the salterns of Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico, and identifying possible environmental processes performed by those microbes. After the master's, Ricardo joined the Microbiology and Cell Science program at the University of Florida, where he continues to work on halophilic microorganisms and their response to oxidative stress in environmentally harsh conditions. Don't we all vibe with that idea? In his spare time, Ricardo enjoys cooking, football, a longtime FC Barcelona fan, and you can catch him most afternoons running laps in the Gators Stadium. Thanks so much for joining us, Ricardo.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So I like to start out each episode by asking our guests, what is something that you do on a daily basis that gives your PhD life balance?
So something I do almost every day is after my day of PhD work, I always have to do some kind of workout. That's kind of like my way to kind of like de-stress and release any kind of tensions that I had over the day. So usually it's kind of like after I get home from work, I always just have like 1 hour to just decompress everything. And then it's kind of like after that, I'm at the gym and I'm working out. I work out for like an hour and a half. So just to kind of like release any leftover tension. And that's the part I look forward to most in the day because it's kind of like my relief moment. And it's helped me a long way throughout the PhD journey.
Yeah. So you do primarily weightlifting. Is that what you like to do most at the gym, or do you do cardio activities? So what is your go-to practices at the gym?
So it's usually a little bit of cardio at the beginning just to warm up, like 15 minutes of cardio, and then the rest is weightlifting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good way to keep in focus. I feel like also it's a way that helps me kind of like later on like have more energy if that somehow makes sense, to have more energy like the rest of the day. So I feel like I'm a lot more motivated, and yeah, it just helps overall.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love to work out as well. And I think that it really I think having something you do consistently every day also really helps just keep you in the right mindset, like knowing that you can rely on the one thing to be the backbone of your day. Like I know when I wake up at 7, I'm going to like get a lift in, and that's something that I can sort of count on. So it sounds like that's kind of like for you too.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's great. And so if we take it back to when you were first thinking about applying to grad school, why did you decide to apply in the first place?
So basically my career, or like my bachelor's, it started off like a lot of biology majors. I was first interested in med school. But as I was going along in the bachelor's, I kind of like found out that that wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I kind of like had this whole entire sort of like an identity crisis, which we all have. And at some point, I took a microbiology course because I was just a biology major, but I took a microbiology course, and I was just left fascinated by all the applications of research. So I decided, hey, I've never done undergraduate research. So I applied to undergraduate research, and I just really like that aspect of problem solving. I did find out what I wanted to do a little bit late. I was a senior year. So I applied to a master's just to get a little bit more experience in the research part. And yeah, I just really like that day-to-day problem solving of the research. So that wanted me to pursue a PhD and keep doing research.
Yeah. And so when you were going through that application process, what did you think grad school would be like? What were your expectations?
So everyone always told me grad school is not easy. So I always knew in the back of my head that it wasn't going to be like this ultra thing that I'm going to be passionate every day. I'm going to be motivated every day. And so I already had that kind of like baseline expectation. And also like doing a master's is kind of like a little bit of a reality check as to what grad school is, not the same as a PhD program. I struggled also like at the transition from master's to PhD despite being in grad school. So I still kind of like had some idea, but I thought it's kind of like, oh, it should be fine. I should be able to handle it. But like once I got there, like the adaptation part was very, very difficult at the beginning. So yeah, my expectation was kind of like, yeah, people tell me it's hard, but I should be able to handle it. And when I got there, it was like a lot of different things hitting me in different directions, and I didn't know which way to dodge. So it was a very heavy adaptation.
Yeah. So do you think that the jump for you from undergrad to master's or from master's to PhD was more challenging, and why?
I would say the jump from master's to PhD. And this is obviously everyone's situation is different. But in my situation, I did my undergrad and master's in the same university. So I
Mm.
was already settled in Mayagüez. And basically, I was hanging around a lot of the same people that were also there doing grad school. So it wasn't that much of a transition. However, transitioning from master's to PhD, I am leaving Puerto Rico for the first time. I've never lived outside of Puerto Rico. I'm moving to Florida, a new place that I've never been to. And yeah, it's basically uprooting my life and settling into a new place. And obviously being away from family for the first time, because a lot of times I just had my family 45-minute drive away. And this time it's going to be plane a flight away. So yeah, that transition was hard, and obviously you get to a new place for the first time, you don't know a lot, you don't know people, so it's kind of like starting to make friends again and what places to go to, and obviously on top of that, grad school being there all the time. So I would say that the combination of those factors was more challenging to me.
Yeah, I think that's something that people should really think about when they're talking about starting a program, right? So, it's not just that you're going, it's not that just that you're going into a hard program or going into a challenging like PhD level research like engagement. It's that you have to set up a new life that you're going to be in for like a while. So you can't just
Right.
be like it needs to be something you do kind of intentionally, right? Because you're going to be there for several years. It's not like it's going to be very fast, and you don't have all the support systems that you have in undergrad a lot of the times. A
Exactly.
lot of the times they're like, you're an adult, and you're like, kind of. So that's a really good point. I think that's interesting. That's an interesting thing to reflect on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and after like everything else, like after a while, you get sort of used to it. You start making friends, and it gets better as you go along. But it's important to like set those pillars of like support early on for grad school, because it's very important to have them.
Totally. And so what does your day-to-day actually look like now? So you're settled in, you're doing your program. What does your day-to-day look like?
So my day to day is usually, and obviously this varies depending on the advisor you have, but usually in my case, it's kind of like a 9 to 5 job for me. Because obviously it also depends on the field, but in my case, it's research, it's microbiology. A lot of it, the times I have to do experiments. So usually I try to get there by about 8:50, just 10 minutes before 9, just to kind of like dump all my stuff and just get myself in the mindset that I'm ready to work. And then it's kind of like I'm either answering emails first, or like if I have a very long experiment first, I get that set up. And the thing is, my field is microbiology, so a lot of the times we have a lot of waiting around to do. So it's sometimes a lot of things. It's kind of like, okay, so let me just arrive, set this up, and I don't know, wait an hour for this to run. And within that hour, then I can just answer emails, or if I'm really into a place where I have like a committee meeting waiting or something, I start to prepare for other stuff or prepare for other meetings. So it's usually kind of like a lot of the times it's kind of like bench, then desk, answering emails, and then back to the bench. And a lot of the times I tend to finish my experiments by about 3 p.m. or 3:30. So then the rest of that time is kind of like just cleaning up and also whatever's left over, any emails I have to answer or things I have to talk with my advisor, I do then. And usually I'm out of the lab by 5, usually. Like that's not always the case. Sometimes there are very long experiments where it's kind of like it's can be sometimes a 10-hour process. So some of those days I'm kind of like, okay, so I have to arrive early just to start setting everything up because I don't want to leave here by 8 p.m. or sometimes 9 p.m. And so it's kind of like I just arrive early to set everything up, get everything going so I can leave by like 5 or 6. It just depends all of the times on what you have to do. And again, mind you, this is depending on the advisor, because usually my advisor is not an advisor that really cares if she doesn't mind. She's not really picky about hours. She's not going to be like, oh, you haven't been here 9 to 5 or you haven't been here 9 to 6. She's kind of like more as kind of like, so this is what task you have to do. This is what I would like you to have. And we have lab meetings every Friday. So I present things that I've done in the weekend lab meeting on Friday. And that is usually what I work my week towards.
Yeah. And do you prefer that sort of less hands-on approach that your advisor has, or do you think I guess so you're setting your own boundaries for yourself about when you're working. Do you appreciate the fact that your advisor doesn't set them for you?
Yes, I really appreciate that. And that's kind of like more on the oversight. She's not hovering over me or like always checking to see if I'm in or not. Because at the end of the day, like experienced advisors know like how much work some experiment or some result is going to take. Obviously I'm speaking again like in the life sciences biology. Every field is different. So they understand, and so long as I'm like presenting something or like working towards something, she doesn't mind. And the other thing is my advisor, and this is like a privileged thing for me to say, I have a really great advisor and she's always available to answer any kind of questions. And that is really appreciated because she always gives me any kind of guidance. So the thing is that if she notices that I am if she notices that I am asking her questions or kind of like, hey, I did this, I don't know if this worked or not, or I would like your input. That kind of interaction helps, and I really appreciate that. So like that kind of like hands off, but at the same time hands on approach, it's something that is very important for me, and I'm really thankful to have.
Yeah, that's the magic of finding the advisor that works well with
Right.
you, right? Yeah. So PSA to all you folks out there, that's magic of grad schools. If you can find an advisor that suits the way that you want to approach grad school and you can work together towards that end, that's really where the magic is.
Yeah, and if I can add to that,
Yeah.
definitely rotate.
Mm.
If you're able to, the rotations are what's going to give you the feel of the lab. Don't feel like the pressure that, oh, I'm rotating, I have to impress. That's not the case for when you're rotating. Usually when you're rotating, you have to look at it as the lab auditioning for you. And so be sure to ask all the questions you can to the grad students that are there and observe like how the grad students are and how the relationship with the advisor is. And that'll go a long way to make your grad school experience easier.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's really, really important for people to understand that. I think that's a great point, that you're shopping for the lab, like the lab wants you. You don't want to feel like you're like obliged to do anything that you aren't, you know, it isn't right for you, right? You're going to find the fit.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So you wake up and then you head into lab around 8:50. You run your experiments, you do your various work obligations, maybe have meetings, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then you finish up around 5 most of the time. Then you head to the gym after your decompression hour. And then what does the rest of your evening look like?
So the rest of my evening is kind of like just literally shutting off.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I do like to cook. So usually I like making dinner. That's also kind of like another way to decompress. And then it's kind of like usually I'm eating by about 8:30ish. And then after I'm eating, I'm kind of like just literally turning off. So it's something like all of the time I'm just like on my couch watching whatever trashy reality TV is hot on Netflix right now. So that's kind of like my way to turn off my brain, or if I'm really binging something, some kind of comedy. Usually I just kind of like do comedies or trashy TV just because that's kind of like my way to not think about anything else and just kind of like, don't know, just turn off, just shut off.
For example, you can't leave us hanging. What are you watching? What's your binge watch right now?
Okay, so the most recent one, I definitely recommend The Ultimatum. It's like so cringy, so bad. It's great.
Is that the one where it's about like they're either going to marry them or they're going to leave them? Is
Exactly.
that the deal? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of like there's these like I think 6 couples that they all like come together to the show, and then it's kind of like, yeah, first off, they each have given the other an ultimatum to marry them or not, but then at the same time it's they're gonna like break them up, have them with other partners that they choose, and then like they're gonna get them back with their original partner. And I don't know, it's just it's just so bad. It's great.
I love that. Okay, and then you did mention one example of this with the 10-hour experiment, but do you have days that don't look like that? Do you have days that fall outside of what you would call a typical day?
um yeah, both in the longer range, and some in the range that there's like nothing to do. There are some days like that, especially in my field, because usually sometimes my organisms decide to take a lot longer to grow than what I want them to. So a lot of the times there's going to be a lot of downtime days too, where you're kind of like just waiting for stuff to grow, where you're kind of like just making preparations. So a lot of the times it's going to be like I'm just either updating my lab notebook or I'm just reading up on something. And those days I can usually wrap up a little bit earlier. And that's, again, that all depends on the advisor. With my advisor, that's fine because she knows, so long as your advisor knows that you're working and like you're putting in work and you're moving towards something, there's no reason why your advisor would be unhappy with you. So yeah, those days I usually tend to wrap up earlier. Or there are some days where I can just, sometimes I even have the flexibility of saying, hey, I have no reason to be here, so I can just like work from home. Sometimes that is also an option. And there was this one example where sometimes like my stuff decides to not grow, and sometimes it says, okay, so like I'm gonna be ready for the weekend. So it's kind of like, okay, so I have to come in on a Saturday. Sometimes that happens. And one time it happened to me that it took forever to get to a point where I was able to do something with it. So I ended up being there at like midnight, just to kind of like harvest everything and just put it away. It is not the norm for me. It's only happened one time, but there are days where it happens. Like research, sometimes it's very fluid. Sometimes it's kind of like, yeah, I want this to be on a schedule. Sometimes your organisms are going to say, nope, that we don't want to do that. We just want to troll you a little bit and like make you suffer a little bit. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but just don't make it an everyday thing. That's like the most important thing to give your life balance. Because something I say a lot to people is kind of like, yeah, like there are people that love to work a lot, but I'm not one of those people that want to overwork myself to death. Because something I say to people is kind of like, grad school is a part of my life. Grad school is a very important part of my life, obviously, but grad school is not my life. So yeah, sometimes there are days where you have to work long hours, 16 hours, but try to keep the minimum. It's not like every day is going to be like that.
Yeah, and I think that what I think you're describing as really positive is that because you have that set schedule and you sort of have the expectation that you're going to go in every day and work kind of like a 9 to 5, it allows you then to set those boundaries to say, I can have an evening, I can have a weekend, because
Right.
ultimately our brains can only work for a certain number of hours every week. I think grad students really try to push it to the next level of saying, yeah, I'm going to work 80-hour weeks where it's all this in-depth thought work or experiment work or sort of things like that. And really that isn't totally possible. So setting the boundaries then allows you to have days that are both lower in number of hours that you have to work and higher, and it all sort of balances out.
Right. And yeah, the thing is also, if you're being overworked, you're more prone to burnout. And this is coming from someone that has, again, this is a very privileged thing for me to say, because this is not something that's ultra common in grad school a lot of the time, which is unfortunate. But I'm very privileged to say that, again, I have like a really good advisor. I have a really great lab environment, and that all contributes to how you feel. And even then, sometimes I do feel burned out, despite the fact that I try to keep it as balanced as I can be. So if you are overworked, you're even more prone to burnout. And that is not productive at all for you as a person, period.
Yeah, I think that that's really important to say. We have to normalize the, even if you aren't, toiling away at midnight every night, you're still subject to feeling the strain of overwork, of working so much, or and your work is so like everything feels so important and heavy, and that it can definitely lead to burnout. So I definitely want to, we can normalize that. Everyone
Yeah.
experiences burnout. And the best way to keep on top of it is, as you're saying, like try and regulate how much time you spend on things and try to set those boundaries.
Yeah, and also another thing is it also happens a lot of times, like there are what you call, well, now that I turned 30 recently, I now call them third life crises, where it's kind of like sometimes I'm in grad school, I don't know when I'm finishing, but what am I going to do next? That always like also happens, which is also contributes to burnout. So that's also something that you need to normalize a lot more. Like a lot of the times we don't know what we want to do, and that's okay. So it's just like important to just kind of like give yourself that space to feel a little bit lost, but just kind of like bring it back to like the present.
Well, that makes this next question a little awkward. So I am going to ask you, what do you want to do next?
What do I
But if
want to
it
do next?
provokes an existential crisis, we can table it for now.
No, no, I'm happy to answer it. So to answer that, I have an idea of what I want to do. But obviously, again, situations are fluid. I definitely do not see myself staying in academia for many reasons. I do see myself probably going more into the industry route. But also at the same time, I've really delved a lot into an area that is not spoken a lot, which is like science communication. And I've taken a couple of courses in that. Particularly, I want to highlight the ASBMB Art of Science Communication, which was something that introduced me to a wonderful community of people. So that kind of like broadened my horizons a little bit, and kind of like it made me like discover kind of like some of a passion of making your science accessible, so that people that aren't in the same field as you, or people that have no idea what you're talking about, like at the very least have a basic understanding of what you're doing and why you science. And I don't know, I feel like I'm really passionate about like providing accessibility for science and making sure that science is properly communicated, because unless you've been living under a rock the last 2 years, you know that misproper communication of science and improper messaging can have really broad repercussions. And misinformation is something that is very, very, that has been very, very, um, it's been very, wow, I blanked on the word there. It's been a problem for during the pandemic. So
Deeply problematic.
yeah, the more we have efficient communication with science, the more we have a better understanding as to what science is and how the scientific process is, the less misinformation can take a hold. So I think it's very important moving forward to engage with people as to what science is and why your science is important in a way that they understand it, in a way that they see the importance of your science.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that I think exactly to your point, we're in this moment where science communication is becoming much more valuable because people understand that there is a gap, like historically filled by reporters and sort of people who have like a basic understanding of science but aren't scientists themselves. And so there's a gap between the science that's being done and the way that the public is understanding it, and people are stepping in now to fill that gap. So I'm really happy to hear that you're also interested in stepping in and filling that role, because I do think it's like desperately needed at this point.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And a lot of companies are also valuing now, industries valuing like science communication skills. A lot of times it's kind of like, yeah, you now have to engage with lay audiences that are not familiar with what you're doing or have never heard any of the terms. So it's, I feel like branching out into taking a couple of courses in science communication, where there are a couple of free ones in the web that you can just look, or ASB&E's art of science communication. It's a it's very helpful because it also helps you like in your field to be a better presenter. So all in all, it's like an A+ all around.
Yeah, it sounds like it has a lot of different applications and benefits.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Okay, well, where can our listeners find you if they want to reach out to you about your work or about some of the things that you're interested in?
So you can look me up on LinkedIn. It's Ricardo Couto-Rodriguez, or if I'm also on science Twitter a lot. I sometimes, depending on where I'm at in my research, I'm either active or inactive. But you can follow me on Twitter at Ricardo Couto-92, Ricardo Couto-92. And yeah, that's usually where I'm mostly active on. So either LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm pretty sure maybe the episode notes have like my name. So
yeah, no, we'll put your handle and everything in the notes. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, and they can find all your information in our notes. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about day in your life.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast here. Yeah, it was really fun.
Great. And thanks to everyone for joining us. This has been Grad School Life by PhD Balance. Episodes of Grad School Life are posted on Thursdays, and Grad Chat episodes are now posted Saturdays on our podcast and our YouTube channel. For more information about Grad School Life by PhD Balance, you can check out our website, phdbalance.com, or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PhD_balance. If you want to be a guest on Grad School Life, check out the link tree on all of our social media platforms. We are scheduling folks now, so join us for an episode. You can find me at CApplewhiteX on Twitter and Instagram. And until next time, bye y'all, and take care of yourselves.